Hello, everyone. I'm Shruti Kumthekar, Marketing Manager at Cloves. Thank you for joining us in our Cloves monthly webinar. Today, we'll be discussing UI UX design for ServiceNow service portals, specifically the process, and we will go over some use cases as well. Here's the agenda. I'm going to take a couple of minutes to go through housekeeping, talk about Cloves, followed by the presentation, and finally Q&A. This webinar will be recorded and you will be able to access it later. For Q&A, you're on mute. So if you have any questions, please use the Q&A section in your Zoom control panel and our panelists will answer them. If you have any questions that are not directly related to the webinar, please email me at shruti@closing.com or sales@closing.com. Our social media channels are listed here and you can access our previous webinars at our Cloves YouTube channel. About Cloves, we are a ServiceNow partner since 2011, and we're based out of Santa Clara, very close to the ServiceNow headquarters. We're a full ServiceNow shop with 250 plus customers, 400 plus implementations, and we have executed projects globally. In terms of services, we provide end-to-end services. Our focus has been on CSM, HRSD, and service portals. Our panelist today is Michael Fernandez. Mike, thank you for joining us today. I will stop sharing at this point and let you take over.
Thank you, Shruti. Go and share my screen. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Share and play. Okay, so thank you for inviting me back. If you missed my previous webinar on UI UX design and self-service portal, I basically talked about deep dive and talked about design principles and the best practices. You can find that in our Cloves YouTube channel. It's definitely noteworthy. You could get some really good nuggets from those things. So back to the topic at hand. What I want to do is picture this, right? I want you to picture this. You're an IT employee, and as an IT employee, on the side, you take some design courses as a hobby. Your company just adopted ServiceNow. Due to the recent budget constraints, you have been chosen, yes, you, the task at hand to design and produce the department's end-user self-service portal. So you start to realize, okay, ServiceNow does have an out-of-the-box service portal. With no hesitation, you start to try things out. No particular steps, just arranging content, tweaking the layouts, adding widgets here and there, just hours on end. Then finally, you launch the service portal out to the company, right? And as a result, the data shows that the employees are not using the product. Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Fernandez. You could call me Mike. I'm the Senior UI UX Designer, Service Portal Architect at Cloves, Inc. I have over 15 years of design experience. You've named it. I've done it in terms of digital design, motion design, print design, video design. At Cloves, I primarily focus on creating really good UI experiences in the portal, primarily for IT, HR, CSM, enterprise facility departments, as well as other projects that we work on, interfaces for like the walk-up kiosk and any mobile apps. Today, in our agenda, I'd like to talk you through some of the preliminary steps of what our clients go through once the statement of work has been signed and the project has started. So up to the point where my roles as the designer kicks in, I'll speak about my design process. I'll talk about the prototyping tools that I use, and then talk through some use cases, followed by some Q&A. So I pose the question, why is this so important? We have to have a design process. Well, we have to define what a design process is. By design, by definition, it's a systematic series of steps that helps you to define, plan, and produce a product you're building. Simply, the reason why having a design process intact is important because it's what makes things professional. You answer these following questions. It's basically a structured way to solve a problem. As you're going through a design process, you define the problem, determine the goals of the project, understand what to achieve, who are the end users of the product, and how does success look like. So at close, before the initial design kickoff begins, a checklist of items and activities they'll be sent to the client to accomplish. This is in the form of a custom pre-engagement preparation checklist. Kind of looks something like this. This is just a portion of it. It's a 6-page doc, but the primarily goal here is it's a preliminary step to identify who the key participants are. And it'll ask like questions like, do you have a corporate branding style guide? Do you have an in-house UX team? Are there any examples out there of things that you like in other people's intranets, color schemes, fonts, so on and so forth? What release of version of ServiceNow are you in? So we get this out to the client for them to fill out. And as that's going on, upon the completion, an official project meeting will be kicked off with the client, and then they're paired up with the designer, which is myself. But the goal is to basically in the meeting to acquaint like the two teams together, just to discuss everyone's roles and responsibilities surrounding the project. So once that I'm paired with that, with them, a design workshop or a kickoff with me would start. And I would adhere to a design process that I've been pretty successful with. And it looks something like this. This is just a design process overview of what steps I take. So as I go through like these individual phases, the idea is to actively design, think, and focus on reducing risks. The ultimate goal by step 5 is to build a test prototype. So let's break this down into steps. The discover stage, I like to say it's breaking down into 2 sub-steps. Research is mostly done by myself alone. And then interview is about conducting it between the agent and the end user. So during the research stage, I'll look at the pre-engagement preparation that they filled out, followed by reviewing and assessing what the current state of their intranet or portal looks like. I'll look in, literally, go into online and browse their public site, and really just try to immerse myself and think as if I'm an employee and learn more about the company and what they're all about, their culture, and so on and so forth. The second part is the interview. The main objective here is just listening, just understanding the problem and what we're trying to do. So we'll try to identify the challenges that the agent is currently going through, decide on what information that they want to communicate to the end user. And some of these examples could be like in an IT department, they need a way to alert users of any systems that are down, right? So any notification, how is that going to look like? How could we get immediate response or immediately communicate information to the end user? Another problem that they can have is that some of the IT agents, they spend lots of time sorting through tickets and escalations. So is there a way in the system where end users can self-help themselves, maybe categorize the types of forms, but have it in an intuitive way where it's understandable for the end user. So it's really just engaging with the agent and clearly identify what goals that the business is trying to accomplish. And so the second part to the interview, in contrast, is we would interview with the end user, right? We would have to identify their pain points and try to see things from their perspective. They may not understand, the lingo of what an IT, the terminology IT uses. So there needs to be some sort of translation when they look into self-helping themselves and using the IT portal. It should be fairly simple and easy to use. And some of the problems that may occur that an end user might have is, they can't find things very quickly, and then some of the articles, they don't make sense, or they're not solving their issue, and they really need that quick, easy response. So they need to figure out a way. This whole process is just, again, trying to figure out what their pain points are and jotting those down. So once we have the discover intact, we go into step number 2, and this is to ideate. The purpose of ideation, what I'm doing as I'm thinking through these problems that people are having, just brainstorm ideas and lots of possible solutions, right? So I'll try to avoid perfection. I'll just allow myself to come up with multiple solutions, some ideas. I'll do some wireframes. I'll do some workflows. And at times it could be quite taxing. I try not to get married to the first ideas that I put out there. You'll start to find out that, the deeper that you get into the project as you're designing solutions, the problems may shift. So the idea is the solutions that you try to do, just try to get them out there and try to figure out ways how you can scale your solutions. And it's very important. We're human, right? We take breaks. It's always good to just take breaks, take a step aside, then revisit again with a fresh pair of eyes. So we're taking, and this is what we're doing as we're ideating. Step 3 is validate. Validation is where you present your work and you test your ideas and concepts with the client or the customer. And the goal here is really to just listen to the feedback and documentation once you've created like your prototypes. So based on your solutions, right, you create a prototype where it kind of gives you like your home screen, what happens when you click here, what happens when you click there. We solve this problem by clicking here and there. You draft out that prototype and you put it in front of those key participants, those stakeholders, people who are going to be using the system. Have them try out the prototype, and you want to remind the user that some of the things that they click on may not work. But as they're kind of interacting with this prototype, you're just observing and you're trying to make them figure out the flows on their own, but kind of help them, ask follow-up questions so you can make them think out loud. And based on those validations and findings and feedback, you kind of document those and put them with the rest of your notes. After validation, we go into refinement. There'll be a loop between 3 and 4. So in the refinement stage, this is where you take the actual feedback from the user and you make tweaks to spruce up the prototype. So the refinement, this is where you critique each solution and decide on which one has the best chance of achieving the business long-term goal. And then you fine tune and apply the company's branding style guide. So this is where you kind of put all of your feedbacks from, basically you put all your assumptions, you answer your assumptions with feedback to see if it's solved by the user. And you refine those into the new design where you eventually put like your styling, the look and the feel and the branding, the style and the branding, and then you put it in front of them again to validate. And once that's good and you guys are all set on that design, we go to the approval step. And this is what it says it is, right? This is where we get design sign off, and then we provide the assets to the developer for the build. And I use Adobe XD as my prototyping tool, but essentially you saved time and money in developing something based on the design, design process. Okay, so let me talk about the prototyping tool that I use. I use this every single day. I'm no way, shape, or form trying to promote them, but it has helped me significantly. And it's the Adobe XD. These bullet points here: design with precision, rapid prototype. You can share, collaborate. If you're used to Photoshop and that whole suite of software, it basically inherits that same shortcut, keyboard shortcuts and behaviors. So I use this as a prototyping tool to create my screens. So example, those prototypes would be something like this. You'll see all the individual screens. And as we kind of draft out each of these individual screens, we use the prototyping tool to consolidate these screens into a user experience prototype. So as they kind of click around through these individual menu items, it takes you to different places. So you get this real-time, real experience flow. Okay, here's an interesting statistic or percentage finding. 79% will search for another site to complete the task. That's pretty high. So to the point of this, it's definitely important to have a process in place that you can go through with the team or your client to really problem solve, try to figure out exactly what are those problems that they're going through and facing so we can have solutions for that. Okay, so now I'm just going to talk about some use cases. So one use case here is the redesign of the ServiceNow out-of-the-box portal. This is some way, shape, or form a version of it. Every version, it constantly changes. I think at most the colors change, but basically it's the same. And when you look at this, I mean, it's a great starting point. It has everything that you need, but if you did put this in front of an end user, it gets quite jarring. And if you look at the design, as you kind of scroll down, there's like an imbalance right here. And to me, this is kind of like an eyesore. And as information starts to add within these widgets, this page starts to grow and it gets really confusing. So the task at hand here is from an IT perspective, if they were to use this, how can we redesign and re-architect this to make it more user-friendly? So this is the out of the box, and so what we've done was kind of deconstruct this and made something like this. We know that Users like to search, some users like to browse. And so we did 50-50 split. We have the search on the top, we have the browsing items on the bottom. So we pretty much put the catalog right front and center, but we use natural language and simplify the UI, removing the clutter. You can see at the top here we have an alert to get information out to the user. They can simply exit that. If they want to search something, they type in the search. And as you can see, we redesigned the search. Out of the box, it just shows one column, but we've showed 3 columns. So as the user starts to type in, a search, results will start querying through the knowledge article and the service catalog. If they can't find what they're looking for, they can click on, open a ticket here. But the whole idea is keeping things simple and having the user self-help themselves. They have to learn by themselves, and by doing that, we make things simple. So we have the search right there. That's how that works. Right underneath, you can open a ticket, or you can find answers or order something. If I'm here, I can open a ticket. It doesn't directly take you to a form, but rather it categorizes your categories into easy, scannable topics. And then if this is something that you're looking for, you click on that, it'll take you to the form. We also put here on this page most requested services. So again, as the user is kind of scanning, it might help jumpstart their brain. They may not know what they're looking for, but they might have some sort of idea or clue. So by just adding these helpful hints, it'll help them go in the right direction that they need. We also had the idea here where we have sort of like my stuff. So as you start to open up tickets, you may want to track where that is at. You'll notice here that there is a badge count of 3. So anytime you see a badge here, this just to notify you an action is required, right? Because there'll be times like you don't really care how many tickets you've opened. You might want to just know, what action do I need to do? So as you click on here, it takes you to the page, and it gives you a set of, items that you need to attack. So just having a really clean way, one page area where you can just take your action is relatively nice, right? You could filter by your tickets. To this way, you could view your open, your close. These are pretty self-explanatory assets that you may have. So again, simple design, removing the clutter was the objective. And also you want to have the opportunity for users to give feedback. Again, this is what would help, kind of like the business, help improve the overall experience. So they need to have some sort of metric or some sort of data in order for them to improve. So this is that's case 1. Case 2, use case 2 is how can we rethink the HR portal? So out of the box, it looks something like this. Again, it looks a little bit clunky. You'll see on the right-hand side, things just sort of just drop, right? You don't even know when the page ends. And then every time you add more information, this starts to grow. So how can we rethink this? And we know that every department is different. HR is more personal. They have a lot of information. They want to be able to communicate a lot of things to, the employee. And so how can we make use of this space and make it more pleasant for a user to come in, find what they need without having, the user to actually call the rep. So what we've done for this example is something like this. You'll notice right off the bat, in the middle we have classified work. We have these buckets, right? Work, life, career. This whole idea here is this spans, it's like the life cycle of an employee. When they're joining, maybe what happens within the first 30 days of your hire. You can use this as an article, to put articles here for that, you know, getting paid, life, you're having a baby, or you want to request time off. I need to change my name because I just got married. So we just put these in here so it's easier for the user to just scan, get some ideas in their head, and locate information to easily solve what they're looking for. You'll notice here on the right, front and center, that there's 4 cases that the user has opened, and then a 1 to do. So again, they can look at their to-dos from here. Underneath this section, we have a promo slider. Here you can have the opportunity to communicate maybe a spotlight, recognize an employee. So we're just really breaking up the space with images and not so much of heavy text, but a well-balanced design. That was the whole idea here. And then these are, to the right, you know, your most viewed articles. You can use this for top rated articles, just a section here, chat. So that was how we kind of envisioned for one client, how to attack the homepage for HR. My last use case would be, it was for an industrial distributor company. The idea was to build a landing page in the service portal and to show, you know, a conference room. And in that conference room, so basically if you're a vendor or a guest and you go into this building, you want a conference room, you're inside this conference room, you don't even know how some of these things work. Where can I get some documentation on how to use the projector, so on and so forth. So here's a landing page that I put together. And the whole idea with this one is when they log on to this page, they'll have like this search where it says, I need help with the conference room I am currently in. They could click on Explore a Room. And as they click on that, it'll have all the rooms readily available, right? Because sometimes they may not know what room they're in, but it's written here. You give them a little bit of information to jumpstart their search, and then they can search, you know, how to use the projector here in the huddle or whatnot. So just a clean UI, again, just breaking up information to easy to view pieces. Here's a training guide. One of the asks was, how can we intelligently display our training guide? Because there are a lot of articles, so we break them into categories like view the conference room, WebEx, so on and so forth, and just really clean, right? I mean, as you kind of just scan through, as an end user, it's easy to digest. Okay, so that was that use case 3. Okay, so in a nutshell, you know, designing something is never, you know, there's never a final stage of design. You're always constantly trying to iterate and create and find solutions. But in order for you to have a really good, solid, I guess, portal or design, you test it out with your users. making sure that you're solving their needs and their wants and their problems. And the way to achieve that through the design process. Okay, let me go back to here. Okay, well that concludes what I have to say, and I'm talking about my process and the tools that I use. I can open up the floor now to some Q&A.
Hey, Mike, that was really great. So we have a couple of questions here.
Yeah.
How do you determine the duration for the whole design process?
So from a design standpoint, the timeline depends, right, on the type of portal that we're trying to present. Roughly, it'll take about a week to several weeks. So it depends on the number of pages, the hours spent, involving creating the ideation to improve the user experience. So yeah, it really depends. Like if you're looking at an enterprise page as well, there's multiple pages to consider. And also depending on the timeline and yeah, the number of iterations, but roughly about a week or to several weeks or so.
Okay. How do you finalize the design when you're getting inputs from multiple stakeholders?
So like I mentioned, like design, it's never final, but during the design process, hopefully you're able to answer those questions up front. You might have some conflicting viewpoints, but what you could do is you could prototype those and have it tested. And if the user feels like this is a great experience, then we can commit to that, right? But we got to have something out, and we can't, we have to have metrics on something. So that's how I would approach that.
Okay. We have another question. Do you use a personal developer site to build out so you don't interfere with other updates that may be going on in the dev instance? And how do you manage teaching end users to navigate the new portal? Let me know if you want me to repeat the question.
Yeah, can I get that one more time? Does it sound like a technical question, but.
Yeah, okay. Do you use a personal developer site to build out so you don't interfere with other updates that may be going on in the dev instance?
So
we have, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess once the design has been approved, it's ready for build on the ServiceNow instance. What I've done once it's been approved, there is a possibility, well, I have my own instance that I develop on and would translate those designs into the build. But it sounds like maybe it sounds like a technical question.
Yeah, we also have Jacob available. Hey, Jacob, do you want to take this question?
Sure, I can do that. Hello, everybody. Jacob Richardson. I'm a technical consultant with Cloves, and I specialize in Service Portal. A lot of what was just demoed are things that I've worked on personally and helped build. So in regards to this current question about the actual development process, often when we're working with clients, we are developing directly in their development instance. And we're working with them based on their own requirements on how we should structure and how we should operate the actual development. Generally, though, the way that we've approached this is if we're interfering with other development efforts, we're doing it wrong, right? So say there's a service portal build that we're supposed to be doing, the general best practice is don't modify the out-of-box pages. So if there's an existing portal that people are using that's the out-of-box one, you wouldn't actually be interfering with that at all while you're doing your development. You would generally go through and clone all of the pages, clone the widgets that you need to modify, and build a portal that's independent of anything that end users are currently using. And that would give you the leeway to be able to work on a portal that doesn't really interfere with anything that anybody else is doing. But that's really only if you're considering just or talking about just portal development. Obviously, if there are back-end changes needed, if you need to make changes to any ITSM applications, et cetera, then obviously you'll need to coordinate with the rest of the development that's happening in that instance. So in terms of end users and training of end users, that's another one that if you feel like end users need training, then there's probably a problem with the design. You shouldn't need to train the end users on anything other than how to get there. So if you have an internal intranet or other means of communication to your user base, as long as they have the link, if they can get to it through their intranet, if they can get to it through your single sign-on, and they can get to the homepage should be able to guide them to wherever they need to go to do whatever they need to do. And if people are having trouble finding what they're looking for, then that's something that you'll need to brainstorm on ways to make simpler rather than pushing out a user guide or something like that.
Thank you, Jacob. Okay, so we have another question. So back to Mike.
Yeah.
So do you recommend an agile process for development, in the sense, do a design, develop, test, and keep repeating the cycle until you get there, or you create the design, you freeze it, and then completely hand it over to the development team?
Yeah, so before anything goes to the development team, we recommend, or I recommend, having a design sign-off. We know, again, like I said, that design is always never final, but we try to get it as much as possible to the end product. So the design never freezes. In the account of that, my philosophy is, when I design something, scale, so it doesn't stop that process. Once that user experience will never be locked; it always scale per se.
Okay, thank you. All right, audience, if you have any more questions, you can use the Q&A section of the controls panel and type in your question over there. And if not, then thank you for joining. And thank you so much, Mike, and thanks, Jacob, as well. And see you all next month for our next closed webinar. Have a nice day.
Thank you all.